So a picture of a 14-year-old Jerry Jones has resurfaced in which Jerry Jones is standing in a crowd of white students who is denying access to black students to this school in the time of where black students are trying to desegregate these schools. And Jerry Jones said he was just there because he was curious. And Stephen A. Smith has defended Jerry Jones' position on this. But I'm going to let you hear what Jerry had to say first.
Any thoughts on the Washington Post article and how the picture they painted of you from a picture when you were 14 years old?
Yeah, that was, 65 years ago, and a curious kid.
65 years ago, that would make this 1957. Well, Emmett Till was killed in 1955, and I just want to say they beat him to death and drug him behind a truck for whistling at a white woman. I'm just asking, because I'm pretty sure it was some 14, 15-year-old boys in that crowd and group that were lookers on. Were they innocent too? I'm just wondering. Matter of fact, let's ask this. If it was a group of 20 burly, big black teenage kids that was impeding white boys and girls from going anywhere or doing anything, you tell me what would have been the results of that. Would they have been considered to be curious kids, or would the towns where they were from would have been burnt to the ground before the day was over?
I didn't know at the time the monumental event, really, that was going on, and I'm sure glad that we're a long way from that. I am, and we just that would remind me just continue to do everything we can to not have those kinds of things happen.
Jerry usually pretty sure of himself. Why he doing a lot of stuttering right now, ain't he?
Jerry, do you understand the perception that people have when you're standing there? Because that was not exactly a welcoming committee that day.
Yeah, I sure do, and I understand that. And I've just understand it. Yes.
So for
I understand it. I just don't have any intention on answering any question that rolled off of your black lips, Leroy. I don't want to hear it.
the people that look at that and say you were a part of that, and you're saying you were curious, and other people are saying, well, this was a crowd, basically, you know.
Look, that was 65 years ago, and I had no idea when I walked up there what we were doing, and it just is a reminder to me of how to improve and do things the right way.
Oh, you mean like not never hiring a black coach? Or like how about like when everybody was kneeling with Cap, you was like, I wish you Negroes would. I will fire all of y'all. I wish you would take a knee. I will cut your kneecaps off. You mean like that?
So what did you think of the crowd who, these kids were just trying to go to school? There was a whole lot of people, there was a lot of hostility towards those kids.
Yeah, you want to ask me what I was thinking? Okay, I was thinking about I'm going to get in trouble for being up here, and I didn't know what was going on, and I was 15 years old.
And now,
so having said that, that's all that I can remember.
okay.
So let's just add some context and timeline to this whole thing. There was a terrible event that happened 12 to 16 years earlier than this Jerry Jones picture that was taken. World War II. Some events in World War II, tragic events that happened to a very popular group of brothers and sisters that we know today. And 6 million people died in this event. Now, let's just say there's an NFL owner that was captured at one of these speeches. Nothing's going on, but he's at a speech, at one of these Smittler speeches, egging on a lot of hate and murderous things in people. And you're just there. Would you still be considered to be a curious boy that was just there? Or would they tell you as an NFL owner, you better sell it before we snatch it, okay? Because we're coming. Either way, you ain't going to have a team by the end of this week, okay? You're not going to have a team. But you know what I want to tell you this? Is the reason that this community gets the type of results that they get is because they don't do what black folk do. They do more. They send emails. They talk to the right people that need to be talked to. And Sha'carri Richardson made a great point when she posted this. There's a lot of talking about this, but if y'all still going to support them, what's the point of complaining? Because we going to be just like this. Y'all know the Cowboy fans. Y'all know the black Cowboy fans. As much as they feel like something has happened and we've been wronged in this situation, they're going to be right there. It's almost playoff time. Let the Cowboys get to the playoffs. Y'all going to be in y'all. We still them boys. Yeah, I'm just saying. I can't stand the Cowboys, but I understand the ones who love them. Because this is how it's going to go. This is why black folk get different results than every other group in the world. Now, is there some lopsidedness to it? Of course it is. They don't never treat us the same way. But this is part of the reason why we get different results, because we don't press as hard as other groups do. But even in understanding that, I'm not going to find every reason in the book to excuse this type of behavior like Stephen A. Smith goes on to do right here.
No question, what was happening is not something that anybody as a black person should be appreciative about. We had 6 students at that particular North Little Rock High School that was trying to desegregate the school.
No one should be okay with it.
Nobody should be okay with that.
Regardless of race.
We understand that. We get all of that.
Come on, you hear the setup. We just hear Stephen A. getting ready to shuck and jive and coon for these white folks. He about to do it. We can know racism exists, but...
We also understand what we as black people and as black folks, black men have to deal with. And by the way, to some degree, we still deal with a lot of things, and we all know it. Racism is alive and well. Bigotry and prejudice is alive and well. We get all of that. What I'm saying is, here's the part that bothers me. You want to get on Jerry Jones and his track record, fine. In 2003 or so, you know what? You should have hired Dennis Green shouldn't have got an interview on the phone. It should have been an in-person interview. Right. You should have followed the letter of the rule of the law as it pertained to the Rooney Rule. He wanted Bill Parcells, universally recognized one of the greatest football coaches we've ever seen. It was clear he wanted Bill Parcells. Nobody else was going to have a chance of getting that job. That's what he wants to do. You want to malign him for that? Fine. You want to point out that he's one of 7 black NFL owners that's never hired an African-American as a head coach? Fine. Do all of that.
Why don't you point out what he did when Colin Kaepernick kneeled and the stance that he took against the kneeling, and if his players decided to kneel? Point out that. Point out the stance that he took against black people being done like we were done, and him saying, if you side with those black folk for that justice, what I'm going to do to you. Point that out, Stephen A. Smith.
Attack him for that. Go ahead. No problem. I see a plethora of African Americans employed by him. I see black players who played for him who rave about this man and what he's done for them on a personal level.
Of course you're going to see African American players that have been employed by him. The whole league is African American. For the most part, the superstars, you wouldn't have a league if it wasn't for black folk. Cut it out. And then you're talking about there's going to be some of them that think highly of him. Yes, of course. You play with him, he gave you millions of dollars. Of course you might be like, yeah, he's a good dude. He gave me $30 million a year. He's a good dude. Come on, Stephen A. Man, I thought you had more of a brain than this.
But if you want to go by his hiring record when it comes to head coaches, no problem. Can't go the executive route because we know it's him. You know what I'm saying? He want to be the president, the GM, the owner. He want to do everything. And then he's got his children that he leans on as well. So he can't go the executive route. But you want to get on him about the head coaches, fine. But you going to bring up a photo of him when he was 14, 15 years old?
Once again, like I said earlier, 14 years old, Emmett Till was, when he was dragged and beaten in the street for whistling at a white woman that he thought was beautiful. And also, you're going to tell me there wasn't no 14, 15-year-old boys involved in Emmett Till's death who drug and helped beat him or were looking on as he got done the way he done? Listen, it was so many cases of black people that were done this way. Black men, black boys, black women, and 14, 15-year-old boys were always in attendance. Always in attendance. They would stand by as families and take pictures of us strung up from a tree. Now you want to tell me that Jerry Jones is an innocent 14? Come on, man.
65 or 66 years ago. This is where cancer culture gets into the mix, and you're making an attempt to eradicate him, what he stands for, and all he has done. Yeah. I will remind you, we've had Senator Robert Byrd, who passed away a few years ago. That was a member of the KKK. We've had other politicians, whose record, who didn't want the segregate, who didn't want desegregation.
Right.
The George Wallaces of the world, the Bull Connors of the world, and others, okay? We've seen all of this. You got elected officials on Capitol Hill that are implementing and legislating policy that affects our lives.
And see, this is the thing, Stephen A. Smith. Senate, the government and these type of people work hand in hand, rich billionaires and stuff like this, because they keep making laws to make things work for them. Now, they should have been punished for these type of things, for being hateful and this, that. I don't agree with being hateful and racist and this, that, and other. But I do see some type of point to segregation and desegregation. Reason I say that is because there was a point where black folks thrived in their own communities because they were segregated. They had doctors, they had lawyers, they had physicists, they had, all these people with great minds that did, and stores, and they did amongst themselves, and they did great. And white people hated that about them, and they went and they burned the cities to the ground. I always thought it was some value to, okay, if we're segregated, we're going to do great on our own over here. We don't have to want to force our way into your society because you never want to accept us. But I also see the point in saying, hey, we are equal. I'm not 3/5 of a man. I'm a man just like you are. I built things like you did. So I should have the right to stand here if I want to stand here. I see both sides of it, but it's a difference. We're fighting to be considered to be the same and not 3/5. People like Jerry Jones in this time were fighting to make us stay lower. It's a difference.
But we're going to go to Jerry Jones. And by the way, I don't have a problem with the photo. I don't have a problem. If he was 30, 35, 40 years old, that's different.
Right.
14, 15 years old. 14, 15 years old.
Right.
So now some folks are going to get to look at Jerry Jones, and who's from Arkansas. It's the South. We understand what the South represented. You understand what I'm saying? Remember, when slavery ended with the Emancipation Proclamation, you talk about 1863 or what have you. What did Dr. Martin Luther King talk about? Well, you didn't give black folks nothing. You ridded slavery from them, but you gave them no land. But you gave white peasants from Europe land in the West and the Midwest, okay? So we understand from an historical perspective where it all comes from, what the South represented at least once upon a time, and in some people's eyes still to this day. But we're going to lean on somebody when he was 14, born and raised in the South, and we're going to pick it up 66 years later to say, you know something?
Yeah.
You ain't hire a black coach. I think that's pretty low. I really, really do. I think that part is pretty low. If he were an adult, that would be different. But a 14, 15-year-old kid raised in the South who literally is just standing there looking, and we use that to bring up in the year 2022.
And this is the age-old question Dave Chappelle brought up about how old is 15 really? Dave said, hey, I was 15 before. If I didn't want to get peed on, I'd just move out the way. But he said the law had a different type of feel when it was a black 15-year-old kid that was practicing wrestling moves with some white kids, jumped off the top rope, ended up severely hurting or killing a white young kid, and they tried him as an adult. There's no stopping him. He knows what he was doing on the top of those ropes. But then when it came to the R. Kelly situation, 15 is not really enough to know what you want to be doing. And then he talked about 15-year-old white girl who was not tied up, but she was kidnapped, but she was in a house untied, and she was very close to her home and somehow didn't walk out the door and leave. And there was another young black girl who was tied up by some crackheads, this, that, and other. She chewed through the ropes. She broke out. She made it home and was on the news before night. It just seems in different stories and different contexts and different situations, they tend to say 15 is a lot more mature than it is in others. When it's Jerry Jones caught at being a looker on in this type of situation, oh, he's curious, he's innocent. When it's Emmett Till caught in this same type of, Emmett Till was 14 years old. He wasn't viewed as innocent. And this was 2 years before Jerry Jones. He wasn't viewed as innocent. He whistled at this white woman, and he was beaten and drugged to death behind a truck. They often view our 15 different from their 15. And that's all we're saying, Stephen A. You know that. You know that. But you tend to try to sweep it under the rug because you work for a lot of people who look like Jerry. But to each his own. Maybe he really feels like this. If he does, I just invite Stephen A. to look through history and gauge what you're looking at a little through a different lens. Because this ain't cutting it for me, man. But the interview goes on, but I think I'm going to probably cut it right there because this says pretty much what needs to be said. But you tell me what you think, man. It's your boy Pete Camp. How old is 15, really? Tell me what you think the plan of action should be going forward. Because like I said, if it was somebody sitting at a Schmittler speech, I don't believe Jerry will have a team right now. But this is your boy Pete Camp. Let me know what you think, what you don't think. Get at your boy.